Your Excellency, the High Commissioner of Rwanda to Kenya, Madam Yamina, Your Excellencies, High Commissioners here present, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors and other dignitaries present in this assembly, the students here present, permit me to extend my profound gratitude for being invited to share with you this moment. It is at once a somber occasion and it is a joyous occasion. It is somber because the events of 20 years ago demonstrate man's inhumanity to man. And it is joyous because it also demonstrates man's resilience and man's ability to rise from the ashes of destruction. On an occasion such as this, one is bound to remember many things. One is bound to remember the many things that have happened in Africa. One is bound to remember that Africans were enslaved. One is bound to remember that the project of slavery took away nearly half of the African population into different parts of the world. One is bound to remember that Africans have been dehumanized over the ages. One is bound to remember that Africans were colonized. One is also bound to remember that the neo-colonial project is alive and well. One is also bound to remember that the fight and the struggle for decolonization was in many ways a project to liberate the African not only from sorrow and want, but from victimization of war and dehumanization. One on this occasion remembers most profoundly the words of Kwame Nkrumah spoken on the 24th day of May 1963, when he exhorted his fellow Africans that our long-term health and salvation as Africans not only demanded but required that we unite. One is bound to remember the words of our own Jomo Kenyatta when he took the view that as Africans we could only be dignified if we were independent and we charted our own course. One is bound to remember the words of the man for whom I am named, Patrice Emery Lumumba of Congo, that Africans must write their history. One can remember many things, but what we are here to remember today are the events of 20 years ago in Rwanda. And one wonders why Rwanda happened at all. Because when the World War II, which was essentially an ethnic war of the European tribes, was fought between 1939 and 1945, one thought that that was a war to end all wars. In fact, the great German pastor Martin Niemöller, after that war, lamented, saying, when they came for the communists, I said nothing, because I was not a communist. When they came for the trade unionists, I said nothing, because I was not a trade unionist. When they came for the Jews, I said nothing, because I was not a Jew. When they came for me, there was nobody to say anything. After that event in 1945, the international community met in San Francisco and we had the UN Charter, and we thought that there would be no war, there would be no killing. In 1948, in Paris, France, they sat again and came with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and we thought that man would never visit pain upon another man. A year later, in 1949, in Geneva, they came with yet a set of conventions, the law of war. But that apparently did not solve the problem, proving that the only thing that we learn from history is that we learn nothing from history. So that indeed, when we attained independence, Africa has seen many wars. You who are present here with me will remember the Biafra War and the pogrom against the Igbos. You will remember the events in Zimbabwe and the 5th Brigade of Zimbabwe against the Ndebele and many other wars. But the Rwandese one was without precedent. For 100 days, the international community watched the events as if they sat in the Roman Colosseum watching lions devouring Christians. They did nothing. For 100 days, not even we African countries rose to support the Rwandese, the Tutsis to be specific. For 100 days, newspapers and television was awash with bodies floating in the rivers. For 100 days, even those who thought that religion and Christianity could save them, seeking refuge in the churches, were killed by their own pastors, demonstrating again that the blood of ethnicity is sometimes thicker than the blood of Christ. These all happened as the international community watched and did nothing. We have already been told how the international community after the events wanted to pontificate. But when they were required to be present, France was not there. The government in Brussels was not there. The Organization of African Unity was eloquent in its silence. The United States of America was absent. The United Kingdom was absent. They were all absent. It took the Rwandese, led by Paul Kagame and his comrades in arms, to literally save themselves when the international community had already written the obituary that Rwanda was just yet another country that could not run her affairs. Many an obituary has been written, and many things have been said. The international community lost their spirit of good Samaritanism, and they came as Johnny-come-latelys to solve the problem that they had watched take place. After the events of 1994, to atone for their sins, they established the International Tribunal for Rwanda, whose justice is at once retributive and Eurocentric, completely misunderstanding the African dynamics. As I speak to you, you can count on your fingers the number of cases that have been dealt with by that tribunal. But the Rwandese once again recognized and realized, rightly so, that the solution had to be homegrown. And that is why the Gacaca, which is as Rwandese as the tall and the elegant Rwandese themselves, were created to look at justice from a different perspective. We have something to learn from Rwanda. The Rwandese recognized that an eye for an eye only makes the world blind. The Rwandese recognized that the long-term health of the country not only required but demanded that they must forgive. The Rwandese recognized that human society is only helped if our memories are selective. And they chose, therefore, through their own unique justice system, to do what they deemed to be right and good, to rehabilitate those who are perpetrated some of the most heinous offenses ever committed by man against man. Today, as we speak, the doomsday prophets who said that Rwanda would go to the dogs have been proved wrong. Today, Rwanda shines like a pink poodle in East Africa. When you want to talk of a country where efficiency is the name of the game, Rwanda comes to mind. Today, when you want a city that is as clean and as glittering as Pearl, Kigali is the city. Today, when you want a country where people participate meaningfully in the affairs of their country, Rwanda is the country. Today, when you want to talk about a country that is ahead of the game in East Africa, Rwanda is the country, demonstrating that Rwanda have risen from their ashes like the fabled phoenix. So what lessons are we to learn on an occasion such as this? Because as Her Excellency said, there are those who still believe that the diabolical project that they initiated 20 years ago is incomplete. And in their minds, in the inner recesses of their hearts, they are in a constant stage and state of preparation, waiting to unleash yet another pogrom against the Tutsi of Rwanda. That is why, as we forgive, we must never forget. History has demonstrated times without number that those who forget are likely to repeat the same mistake. This is why, when you traveled around the world, the museums exist, not because they fossilize our memories, but because they keep our memories alive. The Jews have their own Holocaust museum, and it reminds them on a daily basis that there are those who still deny the Holocaust and believe that there was an unfinished project. After the war in Korea, we still have museums that remind us that we need not have a situation such as that. That is why the museum in Kigali, the Genocide Museum, is designed and meant to demonstrate to us that it's only by constantly reminding ourselves that we can immunize ourselves from the possibility of repeating the same mistake. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not lost on me that we are in Africa, and Africa is not at ease. What happened in Rwanda was sad. Nobody can deny that. Even those who are in the business of questioning what genocide actually means are unanimous that there was genocide in Rwanda. But Rwanda also teaches us that it can happen to us. That when men and women judge each other on the basis of their ethnic extraction, they are likely to repeat the same thing and to relieve Rwanda. We in this country in 2007 nearly crossed the Rubicon and burnt our boots. I hope we remember that we must not repeat it again. As I speak to you, Africa is bleeding from different parts. Africa bleeds in South Sudan. It may not be in the newspaper headlines. The American and European news channels of CNN and BBC and Radio France and Deutsche Welle and Al Jazeera may not cover them, but Sudan is bleeding. because we don't learn from history. That is why we must be eternally vigilant. As I speak to you, the Democratic Republic of Congo is not at ease because we forget. As I speak to you, Central African Republic is not at ease. Africa is not at ease. And that is why the Rwandese, in their wisdom, have instituted this occasion that we may never forget. On an occasion such as this, wisdom not only demands, but requires that we do not speak for too long. That we only remind ourselves that man can visit great pain upon man, and that it is possible that man can also visit great joy on fellow man. As I conclude, I must remember these words of famous men and women who have been confronted with similar situations and have made prescriptions which we are advised to embrace. The great Mother Teresa of Calcutta said, "You only forgive when you are forgiven, but forget we must never." The great Mahatma Gandhi says, "Forgiveness is an attribute of the strong. The weak can never forgive." And that is why we must congratulate the Rwandan government for doing that which is good and right, forgiving the perpetrators of genocide, but remaining eternally vigilant, remembering that the ghosts of malice, that the macabre dance of death still reigns in their hearts and minds, and they are waiting for the opportunity to pounce. But they must not be allowed. And for us Africans who are present in this assembly, we must also interrogate ourselves, remembering that the world does not owe us any duty, that we must solve our problems ourselves. And that is why I must conclude with these famous words of a great Ghanaian, Dr. Emmons Kwegyir Aggrey, the great Aggrey of Africa. The story is told by Kwegyir Aggrey that a long time ago, a farmer went into the field. He was a poultry farmer. When he went into the field, he caught a bird, a big bird. He brought it home, mixed the bird with his chicken and his ducks and his other poultry. And for a long time he fed the birds on chicken feed. And after 5 years, a naturalist visited his farm. And he looked at the bird and said, "This is not a chicken." And he told him, "Yes, it is not a chicken, it used to be an eagle. But I've fed it on chicken feed for so long, it has now become chicken. And it cannot regain its eaglehood." The naturalist said, "No, once an eagle, always an eagle." And he said, "Let us test it out." On 3 different occasions he tried to test it, that it may fly. But it refused to fly, and the farmer said, sarcastically, "I told you, once an eagle, fed on chicken feed, now a chicken." On the 3rd day, he tried again in the morning and placed the eagle on his palm, raised its head toward the sun, and lo and behold, it flew and flew again. And he said, "I told you, no matter how long you feed an eagle on chicken feed, it never loses its eaglehood." We Africans, for a long time, we have been fed on chicken feed. I want to demonstrate to you that we are not chicken, we are eagles. The Rwandese have demonstrated it. Let us emulate the Rwandese. God bless you. Thank you very much. Question number 1. How do I see Kenya? Kenya has great potential, but Kenya is also in danger. As I speak to you in the border of Kericho and Kisumu, the Luos and the Kipsigis have been fighting. That is not good. As I speak to you, doctors have resigned from different parts of the country on the ground that they fear for their lives. As I speak to you, in our 47 odd counties, it is not easy for a Kamba to be employed in Siaya and vice versa, for a Kikuyu to be employed in Migori and for a Luo to be employed in Nyeri and vice versa. The ingredients that I see as mixing in this country is creating a powder cake, which if we are not careful, may explode. The political leadership has a responsibility to bring us together. I know that many of our politicians have gone to Rwanda and seen the Genocide Museum, but sometimes I wonder whether they learn anything at all. We also have a responsibility because we are also equally guilty. In our unguarded moments, our tribesmen can do no wrong. In the eyes of a Luo, the Luo leader can do no wrong. In the eyes of a Kamba leader can do no wrong. We have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of both God and this country. But we can immunize ourselves by learning from Rwanda. What about Africa? As I speak to you now, a war is being fought in South Sudan. And the war is essentially between the Nuer and the Dinka. As I speak to you now, only yesterday in Katsina, in Nigeria, somebody drove by and killed 60 people. As I speak to you now in Borno, in Nigeria, people are being killed because they are Christians. As I speak to you now, the Central African Republic is essentially a failed state, and people are being killed because they are Muslims. As I speak to you now, there is unease in Nigeria. The Igbo is not certain about the Yoruba. In Angola, the Ovimbundu is not comfortable with the Ovambo. Africa is not doing very well. But I urge you, is there something that we are doing beyond the lamentation? Yes. I urge the young men and women here present to go and read the speech delivered on the 30th day of January 2014 by Dr. Nkosan and Lamini Zuma, the chairperson of the African Union. It is an imaginary letter that she writes to Kwame Nkrumah. And she talks about a united Africa under the Vision 2063. If we Africans embrace Vision 2063, then there is a possibility that Africa will realize our potential. Remember, what we have in Vision 2063 is exactly what Kwame Nkrumah urged us to do on the 24th day of May 1963. The tragedy of Africans is that Africans never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. So going forward, we must exercise that ghost. Must we continue to blame our former colonizers? No. But I also want to tell you that the neo-colonial project is alive and well. And we must be vigilant. I may be wrong, but when I look at the former French colonies of Côte d'Ivoire, of Mauritania, of Mali, of Central African Republic, of Niger, of Gabon, I see the surreptitious hand of Paris moving very stealthily to reclaim our former colonies. We must be on our guard. I see the neo-colonial project in this regard. We are the only continent whose legislation we are told to change by others. You never hear the American president or anybody telling the Arabs what to legislate about, but dare legislate, you Africans. You'll be told what to do. And you'll continue to be told as long as you cannot feed yourselves. I don't blame them, I blame us. Lastly, on journalism. The former president of Sierra Leone, Joseph Momo, once said that a journalist with a pen in his or her hand is like a soldier with an AK-47. He can use it to defend or to kill. The tragedy of many African journalists is that they have used it to kill rather than to defend. Going forward, the African journalists must know that they are the immediate successors of the town criers. A town crier does not shout fire when there is no fire. God bless.